Hey guys, it's Aiden from Gamers Class. Today I'm going to be doing another video for my carry climbing guide. So today's video I'm going to be looking at or focusing on Legend to Ancient. And basically I'm going to be looking over a Slark replay here of a Legend 5 player. And yeah, so this is a game on the new patch. We have all the new items, etc. And basically the way I'm gonna approach this video is like similar to the previous videos. I'm just gonna go over the replay. I'm gonna be skipping through it, and I'm going to be highlighting like a couple of mistakes and just general like things I think that are important for you to keep in mind. That is obviously gonna help you with climbing. And this being a legend player, this is likely to be mistakes that other legend players would be as well. Also, I'm just gonna be mentioning a couple of things you need to be like, kind of just the way you want to think about the games, what your kind of the way you question yourself during games. Just some tips on that. That's normally what I find like helpful most, is kind of knowing which questions to ask myself. If I know how to do that, then my gameplay is just gonna improve, right? Because my focus is gonna be better. So with that being said, before we get into the video, a little bit about myself as well is just that obviously I am a carry player myself, and the peak MMR I've achieved is 8,200. So yeah, so we'll start the video here. I'll start from the beginning here and just mention some of the things to think about here first and foremost. So obviously in the pre-game, or the first, like before the rune spawn, the main things you're going to be doing here, you're going to be buying your items obviously, and you're going to be trying to figure out who you're laning against, right? So there's a couple of important things here. Obviously as a legend player, I would expect most legend players to be pretty decent at this, and that is obviously your item decisioning, and also figuring out your lanes. You should be able to do that if you're at legend, so this shouldn't really be a problem for you. So the important thing here is, or what I think you should be trying to focus on, is you want to try get a kind of a brief idea of how you're going to play the lane, who's favored in the lane, and that's gonna also tie with like how you should play the lane, right? And then that's gonna kind of decide what your item build is gonna be. So if we analyze this game in particular here, we're playing Slark. We have a +5 Treant, and we're laning against probably Earth Spirit and Doom. Could also be Earth Spirit and Necrophos, right? So obviously Earth Spirit Necro is going to be a little bit harder, but not really, because Slark and Treant is a very strong hero. He can kind of just throw Nature's Grasp, and we can just run at this Necrophos, and Earth Spirit can't do that much to stop us, especially on the early levels. So I think in this sort of lane, the important thing, if we're playing against Necro, it's to run at him early and to abuse him before he gets levels. If we're laning against Earth Spirit and Doom, it's just a very straightforward lane, right? We're a Slark, we have Essence Shift, they're two melee heroes, they don't have any big threat on their spells, right? Like the only threat that we feel from these heroes is Doom on level 6. So up until Doom is level 6, we have no fear in this lane. We're taking every trade we can. We're playing as aggressively as we can. We should always be standing behind the creeps. Like whenever Doom wants to come up, we want to just threaten to run and hit him a couple of times. And then this can easily lead to kills in this sort of lane. So obviously this is a very favorable lane if it is Doom Earth Spirit, which it is in this game. And our item boards, so in this case our Slark player, he buys Orb of Venom, Tango, Quelling Blade, Double Iron Branch. This is perfectly fine. This is obviously pretty good. The important thing here is that you can see that he is he's looking at what he's playing against, and he's playing buying items that are going to be good against that, right? Most of the time I don't like starting with Orb of Venom, just because I feel like just having like extra stats and slipper, like a slipper and a circlet, is better than this if I'm going for the lower regen routes. But in this case, these heroes just don't really have any threat to you, right? So buying a Orb of Venom is perfectly fine. So this is just something that's very important when it comes to the pregame, figuring out what your lanes are, and then obviously figuring out how you're going to play it based on your matchups, what items you're going to buy. So in this case, we buy an Orb of Venom, and obviously our playstyle is going to be to smack them a lot and trade them as much as possible with Essence Shift. We're going to level Essence Shift level 1, and we're just going to run at these guys and click them. And this lane should be very easy. Like, you're probably not going to shove in the lane until Treant has set up like a stack or something, because you don't want to like give free XP ever to the Doom really. If you can, you'll just keep the lane like static, and you'll just deny the creeps. Whenever he runs forward, you just go on him and you smack him with Essence Shift. And one of the important things here, like one of the only things they can really do, they have two options in this lane as a Doom and an Esper. One of the options is to obviously skip the waves, so like try pull the lane or just farm the lane here. This is something that they can try. And then another thing is they can try create a situation where like they get a lot more creeps, right? So they can try double wave you, but honestly this should never be possible, because as a Slark you're always very dominant in this lane. They can never really like pressure you out of the lane unless you misplay, so they shouldn't really be able to do that. So obviously this is kind of the process that you should try to go through before every game. Try to figure out who you're laning against, what is a good kind of way to approach the lane, and then also with your items. So starting at the start of the game here, we're looking to play aggressively. Obviously it's not ideal that our Treant isn't here. Treant should be here. Also Treant bought Orb of Venom, so this is another thing that is pretty important, is you also want to check what items your pos 5 buys, like the hero you're laning with, right? A lot of this time this is gonna influence what like kind of the item build you go for. So in this situation, if you see that your Treant is starting with Orb of Venom and less regen, it's probably going to be better for you to start with a bit more regen, like 6 tangos, and then just go like stats, so like a circlet, 2 tangos, a Quelling Blade, and 2 Ironwood Branch. This would be perfectly reasonable in this sort of lane. So again, this is something very important. A lot of the time as a carry, if your support, or like most of the time, if you have like a Bane or something, he's gonna get a solve and like 6 tangos, and that's gonna mean you can just start with 3 tangos because your support has some extra regen for you, and you rather just want to be a little bit more greedy, and so forth. So this is again something important to do. Always check what your allies are buying. We can see this is a mistake that our Slark made in this game, and obviously when you're playing solo ranked, it's always going to be your faults for this happening, because you can't control really what your teammates do, right? But we can very easily just fix the situation by just buying like Circlet and going for like a Wraithband bot up instead, right? Which is still perfectly fine. Obviously having the Orb of Venom on the Slark is a bit better, and also it's the new patch, so you do want to buy this item eventually, but still, like, there's no point for you to start with 2 at the start of the game. You can still buy this item later on, but you don't need to start with this item in your starting inventory if your Treant already has one, right? So it's just something important to pay attention to. So we have the right idea here. We want to contest the runes level 1. We're a lot stronger than them. We see that the enemy mid laner is starting here. Again, there's no real threat here. They have no catch. As soon as we see the Necro, our Slark is backing off. This is perfectly fine. And whenever we can catch in some little trade here, this is going to be very good for us as well. In this situation, I think it's even fine for you to ping here and just run here with your Treants and literally just fight them, because there's actually very little they can do. They just used like they can't really do anything, right? They're just 2 melee heroes against Slark and Treant. How do they outtrade you guys? You just, your Treant eats 1 tangos, you run here, and then you just start the lane aggressively, and you just try to zone them a little bit. Then when the creeps meet, you're gonna be running forward, right? You're gonna be running back to the creep wave. So yeah, another thing as well, this is something I mention every game I look at, is no matter what rank you are, just cut the trees with your Quelling Blade. When you start with the Quelling Blade, cut this tree here. This enables the big campo. Cut this tree here. Sometimes you can cut these trees here as well, but this is something that you just always do. Obviously, I'm sure most legend players do this. Okay, and here, like I said, we're very favorable lane, so we, like, even when this Doom runs up, we're just gonna hit him, right? We're gonna run at him constantly. We're always gonna have our hero behind our creeps, and we're just gonna play super aggro. So this is kind of the play style we want to go for here. So here, I like this, obviously. We're just running at them, and we see Doom just gets eaten because it's a low armor hero. It's against Slacker and Treant, 2 very high damage, like 90 damage level 1, and then obviously Essence Shift. There's just no way they kind of contest this lane. One of the problems here, though, is that a lot of creeps have built up, right? So in these situations, it's important now that our Slack player starts trying to auto-attack creeps and even up the kind of the count of your creeps and the enemy creep. Because you don't want to create a situation where they're going to have a lot more creeps for you than you, and they're going to be able to use that to kind of force you away from your creeps, and they can kind of just get all the last hits, right, when they shouldn't be able to. So here I want to see the Slug auto attacking creeps and kill like 3 of these creeps. You don't want to try fight them right now because they have a lot more creeps than you, right? The important thing here is to deal with this creep problem. So here, like the Slug play took a little bit too long to try to start working on the creeps. Like if we see at the start there, he didn't hit any creeps for like 5 seconds. And now it's creating like a problem, right? Also, he missed a bunch of CSF for no reason. And what I have to say about that is, like, basically you just need to practice your CSN to improve at it. Like with a Quelling Blade and 60 damage, you have 70, what do you have? You have 60 or you have 72 damage, right, on the Slug. So it's not hard for you to really get last hits in this lane. We're playing against a Doom with no Quelling Blade as well, so we should really not be struggling at all with last hits. When it comes to last hitting, it just comes down to like knowing your timings, like practicing last hit in, and then having a good idea of how aggro is going to affect last hit in. So aggro from the enemy and your aggro and your teammates aggro. But for the most part, it's just going to come down to practicing last hit in. One of the things here that I'm not liking either is this engagement here. Like, we don't want this to happen at all. This is Treant's fault for trying to engage stuff here. Problem here is it's a level 2 Earthbird. You're both still level 1. Why is this happening? Because our Slog player allowed a big wave to build up and we didn't deal with it. So we're behind on XP and they're ahead. And also, that's another reason why we don't want to fight them or try hit them right now, is because they have too many creeps and they're going to aggro and do a bunch of damage to us, right? So we can see here already in this lane we made quite a lot of mistakes. Kind of just allowing those creeps to build up too much, and also playing slightly too passively. Like when the lane starts, allow them to kind of have a foot in this lane, right, when they should really be getting dominated. One of the other problems here is we're missing a lot of creeps, right? When it comes to itemization in a lane like this, you just want to get your boots as fast as possible. You can go like 1 Wraith Band and then you can go boots. That's fine as well. Ring of Regen I don't think is super good, because you don't really need it in this sort of lane. You're super fine if you just play solid and you don't like allow these big waves and stuff to happen. You should never really take that much damage in this sort of lane. Okay, here the lane is pulled. Our Slug takes a bit, like, it seems like he wasn't too aware of that. When lanes do get pulled like this, and you're playing against an enemy pos 4, like for example, Earthbird is one of them. He has a way to secure the last hit with Boulder Smash, right? If you're playing against Rubik, he has Fade Bolt, so he's gonna try use that Fade Bolt to get the last hit on this big creep, right? So what I recommend in these situations when the enemy pos 3 or pos 4 or whatever the case is pulls this lane, focus on killing the enemy creeps, right? So that means these creeps here first. So the melee creep and the range creep. Try auto attack this and kill these creeps, because that's going to mean that Earthbird loses vision of the camp. So he's not going to be able to time this correctly to steal the last hit. Same with Rubik, right? Whereas if he's still able to do it after you kill his creeps while he pulls here, you're going to know he has vision here, right? You're going to know he has a ward. So this is something like just a little thing, a little trick, if you will, that you kind of want to try when, or something you just need to focus on when the enemy makes this pull, is kill the creeps that are giving them vision so that they can't steal your gold with their spells, right? So this is just something to try and do here. Obviously here we see our Slark doesn't do it and he steals the last hit, which is annoying, you know? That's like a lot of gold for this point in the game. Okay, and we'll go through the lane a little bit faster here. I'm not going to watch too much more of the laning stage here, and we'll start moving on to some other parts. So we're currying out our... What are we currying out? We're currying out boots. Okay, so I like that he's going for the boots. Obviously, I said this is one of the things we want. Why do we want boots? We're stronger in the lane. Like I said, it's a very favorable matchup. Movement speed means you're faster, means you can bully them, you can catch them, creates kill opportunities. Just means you can play more aggressively, right? So that's why we want boots. Okay, and at this point the lane is kind of stabilizing. The Earthspirit is not really playing the lane too much. We're free farming now. The Doom isn't really able to farm that much. The Slark probably missed a free kill here by not reacting fast enough. And the problem here is he's just not using his camera to look what's going on. Like we see on the minimap, Tree is fighting this Doom, right? Whenever you see situations like this, where your support is like bullying the enemy in pos 3 or fighting the pos 4 here, as a carry, it's very important you always keep tabs on what is happening. And also what I would say is a good thing to do here, last hit these creeps from here instead of here. Why do we want to do that? It's going to be a lower distance to run to try connect and finish off this kill. And there's no reason for us to be standing here because there's zero threat to us at this point in the lane, right? We even have a ward, which is very unnecessary. In this lane, you do not need a ward at this point. You should only be getting a ward at 5 minutes or when it hits nighttime. As a carry player on the safe lane, you generally do not need any vision before it hits nighttime, because simply it just doesn't really do that much for you. It's much better used in the off lane or the mid lane. So yeah, this is just a little thing here with the positioning, and obviously you need to pay attention to this, because if our Slark is looking here, he starts running right now. Like right now he's running, and he can set up a kill on this Doom if he runs faster, right? He might still be able to get this kill. Okay, he isn't able to get the kill, and Treant is then overextended and Treant dies. So obviously not ideal here. We're in a very favorable lane. We should have 100% free farm, and Doom is actually ahead of us. Even though we're ahead in last hits, he's got Devour, and he's not having that bad of a time. And I'd say the biggest reason this is happening is simply just because of that situation that happened at the start where they had a ton of creeps. Slark tried to fight into them, and this just created like a pretty bad situation for the lane overall. So I'd say at this point, obviously the lane isn't lost. It's only going to get easier for Slark, but Slark has lost a lot of free farm, which he should have had already. He's like not on par with where he should be, and Doom should be having a lot harder game right now. So we can see here already we've made quite a lot of mistakes in this game. So at this point, I'm gonna skip on a little bit further into the replay and talk about some other points of the game. Okay guys, so starting off at the next point of the replay here, this is 10 minutes in. This is basically just like 5 minutes later in the laning stage. We're approaching kind of the post laning stage part of the game now, and I'm just gonna talk about some of the important things to be thinking about at this point of the game as a carry player. And just kind of the norms, which happens in a lot of games. So first and foremost, at this point in the game, there's a couple of things to think about. Generally, when you're playing against like all offlaners, right, they normally get like quite a big threat on level 6, right? A kill threat, a way to get kills and threaten you. So if you're in a situation where the lane is evenish and the enemy pos 3 is getting level 6 kind of the same time around you, there's a couple of things to consider. So I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So firstly, there's Doom. Doom, it's obviously a huge threat. If you get Doomed as Slark and you don't leap away in time or use your ult or something like this, you're gonna die if there's one other hero. There's even potential for Doom to solo kill you. There's Legion. Legion gets duel, +1 hero, you're dead. Mars, as a Slark, you're pretty safe against Mars. So in that situation, you wouldn't need to care too much. Let's think of some other here. There's also Beastmaster, right? Beastmaster level 6, he gets raw. It's a big threat for a lot of heroes. Slark, not so much. You have Dark Pact, right? So this is just something to, obviously, every game. You need to make sure that you're evaluating how much threat the enemy +3 has to you, like, and kind of what is the threat, right? So in this case, the biggest threat for our Slark play, it's Doom. Doom plus like an Earthbird is, we're gonna die in that situation. At this point in the game, we don't have a ward top, so we need to be careful about that rotation. Like, I'll just switch it over here to the Slark's perspective, and then I'll also put on the fog so we see what he sees. So at this point, it's quite scary in the game for us, right? We're playing against Doom. He has Doom level 6. We don't have a ward. Obviously, right now, Earthbird is dead, so this is a threat that we don't really need to worry about. But obviously, we still do need to be very careful about Doom. So normally what I suggest in these situations, when you're playing against a hero like that, like this, that just has a lot of threat against you, when they hit level 6, generally the best way to approach it is to just start shoving out the lane as fast as you can. So in this situation, Slark is going to be using his Dark Pact to just shove out the lane, right? Constantly. As soon as the lane is in a position where it's safe for him to farm, he's going to farm it with Dark Pact, kill it as fast as he can. Then he's going to move into the jungle. He's going to farm the jungle creeps, and he's going to rinse and repeat this until there's a point in the game where there's a reason for him to move, right? And basically, this is something you're going to be doing in most games as a carry player. It's especially good when you're playing against a hero that threatens you, because you don't want to be playing a static lane against a hero that actually has threat on you, right? So basically, in any situation where the enemy threatens you at all, just do this. Also, if they don't have a threat on you, but they're also very far behind, and you just want to increase your farm like as fast as you can, again, you can still do this. At this point in the game, Slark is like pretty poor, right? He has way too little last hits. The lane did not go as good as it should against Doom. He's same net worth. So he should like, now Doom has a threat as well with Doom. So he should definitely just be shoving in the lane and farming the jungle. Some of the other things you're looking out for at this point in the game, possibly looking to rotate bottom to try pressure the enemy tower, pressure the enemy carry. We see here even this PA just dies, right? So right now you can consider just TPing bottom, like shove out this lane with Slark and then TP bottom, and then try pressure this tower. This is like a decent option. Earthbird and Witch Doctor are dead. If they respawn and TP here, then you're gonna run back, you're gonna farm the camp here, you're gonna shove out this wave again. They don't offer much threat to you, these heroes. Without a Doom, there's like very little threat to you this game. So this is kind of the only hero you need to watch out for most of this game when it comes to farming and split pushing. So this is something that's just very important to think about. Every game. Like I said, also this rotation to bottom to the enemy carry. This is a very common rotation for carries. I've spoken about this in many of my videos. And obviously, the reason why it's so good at 10 minutes as well is because it lines up with the catapult timings, right? So always look out for these timings as a carry player, and always be very careful about, like, always be very aware of what your threats are, and play in a way where they can't punish you for it, right? So here we see our Slark. He's paying no mind to his threats, right? He sees Doom, level 6. He doesn't care. He's just gonna pounce on him when he's full HP. He's got no vision of the tower. Witch Doctor, Earthbird, they're both missing. But honestly, PA is also missing, by the way. But who cares? We can just pounce on Doom and we can just hit him, right? Wrong. Doom, he has a threat to you. He's going to turn around. He's going to doom you. If there's one other hero, you're always dead in that situation, right? So this is, again, it's just something you always need to be aware of every game as a carry player. If you don't do it, you're going to get unnecessary deaths like this that are going to slow down your game and just make the game harder, right? So yeah, so we'll watch a little bit onwards from this point. I'm interested to see where our Slark player decides to go after he respawns here. So okay, he sees Witch Doctor overextending here, and he's able to TP top. So this is really good that the enemy are making this really bad play, because now the important thing here is this tower is going to survive for a bit. If the enemies don't like dive like this and they just play a little bit more passively and maybe like a necro rotation or something with a TP, they can probably just take this tower with the catapult. So this is a very good situation for you now. Able to get 2 kills there, get a free kill on the Witch Doctor and the Doom. So this works out very well. So obviously in this situation, most of the time this won't happen. And what I recommend is, for example, like in this situation, let's say there's a Witch Doctor, there's an Earth Spirit, there's a Doom. Let's say the enemy mid laner also TP's top here as the carry. Sorry, to your lane, like to your lane where you play. Most of the time in this situation, the best thing for you to do as the carry, it's to go bottom and counter this tower. So try trade this tower in the process, or mid and trade this tower, right? As a carry player, it's not your job to defend every tower on the map. Basically, the way you want to think about it is when it's possible for you to defend a tower without being under threat, you're going to take that opportunity every time. Same applies to whenever you can farm a creep wave and shove in a creep wave into the enemy's part of the map. If you can do that with little threats or no way of dying when you do that, you're going to do it every time. So and then when you can't do, when those 2 points don't apply, that's when you're going to hit jungle creeps, right? So these are just some important things to note. Obviously in this situation, our Slark players awarded 2 free kills by a dive in Doom and Witch Doctor, and obviously when you see these situations, you take them every time as well. So yeah, so at this point I'm going to move on to another part of the replay here, and I'll see you guys then. Okay guys, moving on to the next point of the replay here. So this is 17 minutes. This is a part of the game where our Slark player is about to get ganked. Obviously, I know this because I've watched the replay. Obviously, our Slark player doesn't. But like after seeing this death, the main thing that I thought about when I saw this death in this replay is, why is Slark here in the first place, right? And that led me to our next point, which is basically, where do you want to kind of position yourself as a carry player around, like, let's say, like, you know, post laning stage. This is approaching the mid game. We have our first couple of items. We can talk about this a little bit as well. Basically, our Slark, he decided to go for the new Orb of Corrosion. It's very good. Then he went for Echo Saber. This is a very good item on Slark as well. So I think the item build makes sense. Q's up next to the Silver Edge. It's again, it's just a cure that synergizes well with Slark, and it's good, very good against Phantom Assassin. Some of the things I was thinking about earlier about his item choice is, this is another thing that, like, just kind of another tip, is when you're building items as a carry player, a lot of the time you're going to be deciding against a greedier option or a more kind of aggressive or proactive option, right? So in this case, as a Slark, your main item choices normally as a Slark, like, you don't really ever buy a Battle Fury on Slark. You generally always buy an Echo Saber. The one exception on Slark is normally Midas. This is kind of the one item, the one greedy item that makes sense on Slark. And other than that, there's not too many others. Like, most of the time as Slark, you're just gonna go like a Midas, or you're gonna go Echo Saber into like Silver Edge or Skadi or Blink or something like that, or even sometimes you would just go like Yasha, SNY, something like this, right? There's a lot of different interesting item builds you can do on Slark, but your first item is generally gonna be between Echo Saber and Midas. And just another like side point here that I just want to mention is when you're deciding for these items, some of the important things to look at in the game is how quickly are you going to be able to get that item. This is especially important for an item like Midas. Let's say you're going to get the item at like 15 minutes, it's not going to be that good, right? If you can get it, let's say before 10 minutes, it's going to be a lot better. Another thing to look for is, are the enemy going to be able to punish me if I go for this greedy item? If we look at the enemy lineup and we see that they don't really have any way to kill towers, which when we look at the enemy, they go in PA Battle Fury. They have a Doom with Devour. They have a Necrophos. They have no heroes to hit towers, right? So this is actually quite a decent game to like go for something like a Midas, a more greedy option. With Slark, the item builds are a bit funny at the moment. So like, yeah, I feel like the only real greedy option with Slark is Hannah Midas. So like when you are thinking about greedy item versus a more proactive item, this is what the questions you want to ask yourself, right? Can the enemy punish me? When am I going to get the items? And this ultimately should be the questions that are going to answer whether you're going to get which item, right? So just a little thing here. And then the main point of this part of the game that I wanted to talk about was obviously where to place yourself on the map. So at this point of the game, we see our top lane, right? So the top lane at this point, this is now going to be known as the dead lane. Why is this the dead lane? Because enemy has taken the top tier 1. The enemy most probably have vision in here because they've been playing this area for the majority of the past 17 minutes because they have more control because they took this tower. And the enemy's dead lane is their bottom lane, right? It's the same part of the map. They lost the same tower, and you've also placed vision bottom as the dire. So it's very obvious that the enemy do the same thing, right? So at this point in the game, where should we be playing as a carry? Most of the time as a carry, you're always going to put yourself in the part of the safe lane, right? Let's say this is the safe lane. If this is the dead lane, then this would be the safer part of the map at this point. And this is going to be the most common place you're going to see like all high MMR carry plays to be playing in most games. Obviously there are factors that where you would play the dead lane or where you would play mid or where you would rather just play like a triangle and mid instead. And these kind of configurations are all very situational. So instead, I'm just gonna mention kind of the basic positioning here. And that's gonna be, if you have the option to just play bottom, shoving this lane, and your teammates have already played vision here, and this tower is dead, it's normally always going to be better for you to do that. Because it's much easier for you to read ganks when you're constantly shoving in this bottom lane. It's very hard for the enemy to gank you here. And also the enemy do not want to make plays in their jungle, because if they kill you here, where are they going to go? Whereas if they kill you mid, they're close to rush, they're close to top tier 1, they're close to top mid tier 1. There's a lot of options for them to continue the plays, right? Whereas if they kill you in their jungle, it kind of, there's just no real good plays to go for after that. And also you've probably already shoved in this lane, right? So normally at this point of the game, you want to be putting yourself in the safest part of the map where you're going to be able to apply the most pressure. And in this case, it's always bottom because you have a ward. The enemy's tower is dead here. And top is scary because you've lost this tower. Obviously, right now you have Ember and Beastmaster here farming. But again, this is another reason not to be top. We always want to avoid other core heroes where we farm. So if let's say we just respawn as Slark and we see that Ember and Beastmaster are farming top jungle or our jungle, are we going to be more inclined to run here and farm, or are we going to be more inclined to run here and then here and pressure this lane here? We're always going to go here instead, right? Because we don't want to be sharing farm areas with our other core heroes, because that's just going to be an inefficient way of farming the map, right? So just some important things to keep in mind here with positioning. We see here as well our Slark player, he runs into a ward in his jungle, 4 heroes on the map have been missing for, let's say, like the past minute, I believe. No one has shown in 4 minutes except Necrophos in the mid lane. So it's very obvious that a gank is coming. And not to mention, our Slark can very easily see here that his Shadow Dance is not active, which means that the enemy have vision on him. So again, in Slark specifically, always pay attention to when your Shadow Dance is not active, but also try to play the best parts of the map. The way you need to think about it is, where are my other core heroes farming? Where do I have vision? Where are the enemies likely having vision? Where do the enemies want to play mainly? If I'm farming in this area, is this a good area for the enemies to make plays? These are just some questions to ask yourself in the middle of the game when you're thinking, should I be farming here? Is this a good area? Well, now you can simply just ask yourself these questions. If the answer is yes for all of them, then it's a good place to farm. So yeah, we'll continue the clip here. Obviously our Slark, he's farming on vision. Enemies are all missing. And in a bit, they rotate here and they kill him and he dies. Obviously, it's not too bad because it's in a very deep location. And they use a lot to kill the Slark there. They use Doom and everything. But yeah, so again, this is just an unnecessary death. We need to pay more attention to our spells. Obviously, a Slark is a very specific case. He's the only carry hero that knows when he's farming under vision. So that's also just a tip for Slark as well. Another tip for Slark as well that in this replay our Slark player didn't do. He did not buy a sentry ward at any point of the game. And as Slark, generally what I recommend is around like 10 to 15 minutes, courier yourself out 2 sentry wards, because you're always going to come across any enemy wards and you're going to make your money back because observers give more than 75 gold. So that's a good habit to have on Slark in general as well. So yeah, so we're going to speed up the video a little bit now as well, and I'm going to be moving on to the next point here. So I'll see you guys at that point. Okay guys, so moving on to the next point of the replay here, and I think this is a very important very important point. Like this is if I had to choose like the most important thing out of this video, which you should be focusing on, this would probably be the biggest one, because I see this mistake happening. Let's say every legend player I watch always makes this mistake at some point in the game. Even higher ranks, even divine players make this mistake, even ancient players. If you can start working on this mistake in particular, because it has a lot of different cases, this is going to improve your gameplay like a lot. So let's see. So at this point in the game, we're top lane as Slark. We're split pushing. Our Rubik died recently. Our Treant is dead as well. He's respawning. So we're applying pressure to other parts of the map. This is very good, right? We're applying, this is the best thing we can be doing right now. We see enemies showing mid. We see Doom bottom. There's zero threat to us. So we're going to continue showing up this lane and just apply pressure. So everything I'm seeing right now, it's very good, right? As I resume the replay here, we see the enemy are still pushing mid. For some reason, our allies are trying to defend this tower. And it's now starting this awkward fight, which shouldn't be happening, right? And as we see, our Slark player here is running towards this fight, okay? And you may think to yourself, but this isn't so bad, right? Like Slark, he's running there. Maybe he can like turn the fight, or he can get a free kill or something. But the problem is, the answer is just no. If you look at any Smurf player playing in the legend bracket, for example, if you watch his gameplay, it's gonna look like that player is playing very greedy, right? Or the player is playing, he's playing like a solo player. He thinks he's like this miracle guy or something, right? But the answer is like, the fact of the matter is, when you're a higher ranked player and you're playing in the legend bracket, your teammates are making the same mistakes whether a legend carry player is playing or like an immortal carry player is playing, right? The difference is that the immortal player is going to know when the plays are bad and when he should not partake in those plays, because there's no way they're going to work out, right? This is something that's very important for you to like start learning as a carry player if you want to start just solo carrying games in like the lower ranks, right? Because if you can start learning this, like what I mean is you immediately can, like you should immediately be able to see even 30 seconds ago, if you're paying enough attention to the game, you can immediately tell that this is a terrible fight. Why? Your Rubik is already dead, your Treant is still respawning, you guys are behind as well slightly, your Beastmaster, you're just not set up to defend this tower, right? This is never gonna work. And the difference here between our legend player playing this lock and the immortal player is our immortal player, he would have killed this wave already, and this tower would be 80% HP right now, and he would be hitting it. And instead of making his way towards a fight that is completely unwinnable, there's no way you're changing this fight. Our immortal player would have gotten a tower, would have gotten one and a second creep wave worth of farm, and he also would have forced one or two of these heroes to TP to defend. And why is this important? Because you're getting a lot of farm, you're top net worth at that point pretty much, or you're very close to the PA. You're forcing the enemies to TP to defend. And there's no option for the enemy here, right? Their only option is for them to TP and defend it. They can't like not do that. Otherwise, you're just going to go high ground and take their racks because you're ahead in the push, because they're busy killing heroes and you're killing their tower. So what do you do by doing this? You get a bunch of farm, you force the enemy back, which in turn kills their whole mid push, which means these kills that they get on your Ember and your Treant actually doesn't mean anything, because you've completely diffused the situation by forcing them to defend, right? And like stop you from going high ground. So if I would say one thing that's very like that's gonna win you a lot of games, and it's gonna mean that you're gonna have a lot more farm in your games, is this: start paying attention to what are mistakes and what are not mistakes from your teammates' cores. If it's a bad tower to defend or a bad tower to go for, and you clearly say to your teammates that's not good, and they still do it, unless you can turn the fight because you were wrong or whatever, you need to like apply the counter pressure, and you need to make sure that when they make that mistake, you've cleaned up their mistake by forcing the enemy here so that they cannot actually get real objectives and make real progress in the game. Because sure, a couple of kills for the enemy is good, but the real thing that's game losing is when they can kill heroes and then they can just run down lanes. As a carry player, a lot of the time it's going to be your job to stop this from happening. And that's going to be by applying counter pressure on side lanes, skipping waves. Let's say you're anti-mage, that you do that so much as anti-mage, especially in harder games where you're further behind. And this is obviously going to apply to like not every game, because not every game this will happen, but in the games that this does happen, it's very important that you react appropriately. We'll see here what our Slug player does just for educational purposes. So yeah, the fight is completely lost. There's no way he's taking this fight. If he thought about that before, it would have been very obvious. And now where are we? We're in our jungle. We wasted a minute and a half running here. Again, could have gotten 2 waves worth of farm, and this tower would be dead pretty much by now. And then 2 guys would have to TP, or even 1 guy. And if it's just a Witch Doctor TPing to defend, for example, are we going to back off? No, we're going to run after Witch Doctor. We're going to force another guy to TP. Then we're going to pop Shadow Dance. We're going to TP bottom. We're going to do the same thing bottom, right? So this is something that's very important to master as a carry player. If you can do this in the legend bracket and start to work on this and like learn how to apply this properly, you're going to win a lot more games than if you don't. So yeah, so this is what the third point of the video, and I'd say this is a very important one to keep your eye on, especially for legend players, ancient players, even divine players, because I played a lot of games on Smurf accounts, like like climbing on divine counts or whatever, and whenever I'm not playing carry and I see other like divine players or even legend players playing, I always see this mistake happen. Also, when I'm watching replays, I watch a lot of replays, I always always see this happen. And even sometimes the model players make this mistake. It's all about like your discipline, and it's all about how focused you are in the game. So it's just a very, very important factor for a carry player. So yeah. So with that being said, I'm going to be moving on to the last point of the game here. And then I'm going to wrap up the video. So I'll see you guys in the next points. Okay guys, so moving on to the last point in the game. As you'll notice, this is very much further down the line in the game. A lot has happened since then, but again, this is just an important thing that I see happening in a lot of legend games, again, a lot of ancient games, divine. I see this happening in all sorts of ranks, but again, it happens like way more often in legend. So it's something very important to keep in mind. And again, it's kind of similar to the last point in a way, but it's different. So we'll get into the last thing here, and that is basically in situations where whenever you're taking a tower, you're threatening high ground, there's going to be a point where you need to back off and you need to defend your lanes. If the enemies are doing the correct thing, they're going to be applying your other lanes, which means at some point you need to defend those lanes, right? And one of the important things here as a carry player is this late on in the game, when you have all the items, you have the most net worth on the game. Your teammates are always going to kind of be following you and doing what you want to do at this point of the game. Whether you think they do it or they don't, believe me, they do, because they can't do anything without their carry play at this point in the game, because they simply just don't have the damage to take down towers or kill heroes. So it's very important that you always make good decisions at this point in the game, especially like past 40 minutes. Past 40 minutes, 80% of the decisions, or even 60-70% of the impact is going to come from the carry player around this point of the game, because your decisions just have a lot more impact than they do let's say the first 20 minutes, because at that point you're generally farming more and your teammates are making the plays. But at this point you're dictating the pace of the game a lot more. So we see a very common situation here. We went high ground, we did a good amount of damage, our treant ended up dying. So we're backing off to defend top lane with Beastmaster. Maybe this isn't the best call from Beastmaster in this situation, but the important thing is that it's happening. So we need to react appropriately, right? So our Beastmaster is TPing out to defend the lane. And as the Slark right now, our teammates are backing off. Treant is dead. We're not continuing this push. So we need to back off and we need to just farm. We need to wait until our Treant respawns, until Beastmaster has TP again, and then we're going to go again, right? It's very important that you completely try to avoid engage in a fight or whatever the case may be, right? So at this point we find a DD. So this is something that we can potentially fight with. Again, our Treant is still dead and our Beastmaster does not have TP. And it's still, we're not really in shape to take a team fight. So here, this is obviously the first problem. It's just very undisciplined. We're running completely alone into an area where we saw the enemies just run towards because we had a Hawk. You saw a couple of heroes run here. No other heroes are showing as well, so it's very risky. At this point in the game, it's very rare that you're going to get solo kills. It's normally going to be very obvious if you're going to be able to get a solo kill, and if it's not very obvious, then you're probably making a mistake by trying to force something. So that's the first part of the mistake. We're going for a solo play here. Obviously we have DD, so we have a decent reason for it, but still, it just doesn't work when you're 1 hero versus 5 40 minutes into the game. But it's still fine, right? We got out safe. We had to use our Shadow Dance, but we're still safe. We have our Aegis, but we're completely fine here. We can just back off. This is another point that I want to mention. In a lot of games, you're going to have situations where you waste your spells because you made a misplay, like this situation here, for example. In other situations, you might have used your BKB when you didn't need to. And in those situations, what I always recommend is once you waste an important spell for fighting or an important item, just back off, reset, wait for the item to come off cooldown, and then try to make plays again. this is something you should just always do, right? But because now this play happens, our Ember for some reason thinks he can go in, and we try to take a fight here, right? After just wasting our Shadow Dance. And without Shadow Dance, there's no way to stop us from getting doomed. It means we have no shot, right? There's just no way. Also, you have no Shadow Dance at BKB because you just wasted it. You have no buyback. And you just die again, right? So again, this all leads from this point here when our Beastmaster TP's out. Firstly, we're not backing off fast enough and we're not getting farm on the map. We're hanging around too much. And then here we're trying to make a solo play, which is just never going to work at this point in the game. And then the final point of this is we even get out after making our misplay, but then we make the crucial mistake of trying to go in again after wasting one of our key abilities, right? At this point in the game, BKB and Shadow Dance are your most important tools as Slark to take team fights. When they're on cooldown, you're avoiding team fights like the coronavirus, literally, right? Like, you're not trying to take any fights. You just don't want to be there. So, again, it's just a very important thing. I see it happen all the time in Legend games, even ranks higher than that. And it's just a very important thing to keep in mind. So yeah, so that's going to be the final points of the video, guys. It was a pretty long video, a little bit longer than I planned to make it, but oh well. So yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed my carry guide. This was Legend to Ancient, and I'll see you in the next one. So cheers.